Today, I know that many in Louisville and across the Commonwealth and country have been anxiously awaiting the completion of our investigation into the death of Miss Breonna Taylor. Prior to this announcement, I spoke with Miss Palmer, Breonna Taylor's mother, to share with her the results from the grand jury. Many of you in this room know that I had the opportunity last month to meet in person with her and other members of Miss Taylor's family, including Miss Bianca Austin and Miss Janiyah Palmer. I want to once again publicly express my condolences. Every day, this family wakes up to the realization that someone they loved is no longer with them. There's nothing I can offer today to take away the grief and heartache this family is experiencing as a result of losing a child they loved, a niece, a sister, and a friend. What I can provide today are the facts, which my office has worked long and hard to uncover, analyze, and scrutinize since accepting this case in mid-May. I urge everyone listening today to not lose sight of the fact that a life has been lost, a tragedy under any circumstances. The decision before my office as the special prosecutor in this case was not to decide if the loss of Miss Taylor's life was a tragedy. The answer to that question is unequivocally yes. There is no doubt that this is a gut-wrenching, emotional case, and the pain that many people are feeling is understandable. I deeply care about the value and sanctity of human life. It deserves protection, and in this case, a human life was lost. We cannot forget that. My job as the special prosecutor in this case was to put emotions aside and investigate the facts to determine if criminal violations of state law resulted in the loss of Miss Taylor's life. This included examining the actions of Sergeant Jonathan Mattingly, Detective Brett Hankinson, and Detective Miles Cosgrove, the three officers who fired their weapons in the early morning hours of March 13th. In working with our federal partners on this case, it was determined that while we would share information to advance our respective investigations, we must also maintain some level of separation to ensure the integrity of each investigation. 911 calls, police radio traffic, and interviews. We utilized information from the Kentucky State Police, local medical examiners, as well as working with the FBI crime lab in Quantico to secure a trajectory analysis and ballistics report. Our team conducted interviews in this case and spent thousands of hours examining all of the available evidence. We concluded our last interview in this case this past Friday and began our grand jury presentation on Monday. As long as the case is making its way through our legal system, I can only speak in general terms about our independent investigation and findings. As the prosecutor, I am prohibited by the Kentucky Rules of Professional Conduct from making public comments that could in any way prejudice this case as it moves forward. Each state has different rules about what prosecutors can and cannot say. The Kentucky rules are clear that I'm prohibited from making comments that could sway public opinion or heighten public condemnation of those involved in the case. These are crucial rules to ensure due process under the Constitution. When prosecutors prematurely release information about the case to the public, it can risk justice by poisoning the jury pool, violating the accused's rights to a fair trial, and even jeopardizing the final verdict. The success of our legal system is predicated on the principle that the accused is innocent until proven guilty. Despite passions, opinions, and desire for every detail to be known, the rule of law must apply. Justice must be done. In the early morning hours of March 13th, officers from LMPD executed a search warrant at 3003 Springfield Drive, apartment 4. This was Miss Breonna Taylor's residence. The officers were advised by superiors to knock and announce their presence in serving this specific search warrant. The scope of our investigation did not include the obtainment of that warrant by LMPD's Criminal Interdiction Division. Federal law enforcement partners are conducting that investigation. Sergeant Mattingly and Detectives Cosgrove and Hankinson had no known involvement in the preceding investigation or obtainment of the search warrant. They were called into duty as extra personnel to effectuate the service of the search warrant. They only had information conveyed to them during their prior briefing. Evidence shows that officers both knocked and announced their presence at the apartment. The officers' statements about their announcement are corroborated by an independent witness who was near in proximity to apartment 4. In other words, the warrant was not served as a no-knock warrant. When officers were unable to get anyone to answer or open the door to apartment 4, the decision was made to breach the door. After breaching the door, Sergeant Mattingly was the first and only officer to enter the residence. Sergeant Mattingly identified 2 individuals standing beside one another at the end of the hall, a male and a female. In his statement, he says that the male was holding a gun, arms extended, in a shooting stance. Sergeant Mattingly saw the man's gun fire, heard a boom, and immediately knew he was shot as a result of feeling heat in his upper thigh. Kenneth Walker fired the shot that hit Sergeant Mattingly, and there is no evidence to support that Sergeant Mattingly was hit by friendly fire from other officers. Mr. Walker admitted that he fired one shot and was the first to shoot. In addition to all the testimony, the ballistics report shows that the round that struck Sergeant Mattingly was fired from a 9mm handgun. The LMPD officers fired 40 caliber handguns. Sergeant Mattingly returned fire down the hallway. Mattingly fired 6 shots. Almost simultaneously, Detective Cosgrove, also in the doorway, shot 16 times. This all took place in a matter of seconds. In total, 6 bullets struck Ms. Taylor. Medical evidence obtained by our team indicates that only 1 shot was fatal. Further medical evidence shows that Ms. Taylor would have died from the fatal shot within a few seconds to 2 minutes after being struck. Detective Hankinson fired his weapon 10 times, including from an outside sliding glass door and through a bedroom window. Some bullets traveled through apartment 4 and into apartment 3 before some exited that apartment. At the time, 3 residents of apartment 3 were at home, including a male, a pregnant female, and a child. There is no conclusive evidence that any bullets fired from Detective Hankinson's weapon struck Ms. Taylor. The KSP ballistics analysis did not identify which of the 3 officers fired the fatal shot. After receiving that information, I asked the FBI Crime Lab to conduct its own analysis to see if they reached the same results. The FBI ballistics analysis concluded that the fatal shot was fired by Detective Cosgrove. Our office looked at both reports to determine if there were major differences in the procedures used by each lab that would have led the FBI to identify who fired the fatal shot. Both law enforcement agencies use similar equipment and analysis, and each lab is highly respected for their work. There was nothing our investigators could point to, nor anything provided by the respective agencies, that directly explains why one lab made the call while another did not. I think it is worth repeating again that our investigation found that Mattingly and Cosgrove were justified in their use of force after having been fired upon by Kenneth Walker. Secondary to this justification, the KSP and FBI ballistics analysis reached different conclusions, creating a reasonable doubt in the evidence about who fired the fatal shot. I certainly understand the public's desire for answers, and many have questioned the length of the investigation. Simply put, we had to try every means necessary to determine who fired the fatal shot before the investigation could be completed. With a thorough and complete knowledge of all evidence collected in this case, lawyers with our Office of Special Prosecutions presented the findings of our independent investigation before a grand jury comprised of Jefferson County residents beginning on Monday and concluding today. In Fletcher v. Graham, the Kentucky Supreme Court said that the grand jury has competing but balanced functions. On the one hand, its purpose is to investigate allegations of criminal conduct and determine if there is probable cause to believe that a crime has been committed. On the other, the grand jury serves to protect the public against unfounded criminal prosecutions where probable cause is lacking. The grand jury is unique in our criminal justice system because it operates independent of the court and the prosecutor. The hallmark of the grand jury is its independence from outside influence. This independence is necessary to ensure that justice is done both for the victims and for the accused. After hearing the evidence from our team of prosecutors, the grand jury voted to return an indictment against Detective Hankinson for 3 counts of wanton endangerment for wantonly placing the 3 individuals in apartment 3 in danger of serious physical injury or death. The charge of wanton endangerment in the first degree is a Class D felony, and if found guilty, the accused can serve up to 5 years for each count. Kentucky law states that a person is guilty of wanton endangerment in the first degree when, under circumstances manifesting extreme indifference to the value of human life, he wantonly engages in conduct which creates a substantial danger of death or serious physical injury to another person. My office is prepared to prove these charges at trial. However, it's important to note that he is presumed innocent until proven guilty. During the last 6 months, we've all heard mention of possible charges that could be brought in this case. It's important to understand that all of the charges that have been mentioned have specific meanings and ramifications. Criminal homicide encompasses the taking of a life by another. While there are 6 possible homicide charges under Kentucky law, these charges are not applicable to the facts before us because our investigation showed, and the grand jury agreed, that Mattingly and Cosgrove were justified in the return of deadly fire after having been fired upon by Kenneth Walker. Let me state that again. According to Kentucky law, the use of force by Mattingly and Cosgrove was justified to protect themselves. This justification bars us from pursuing criminal charges in Miss Breonna Taylor's death. The truth is now before us. The facts have been examined, and a grand jury comprised of our peers and fellow citizens has made a decision. Justice is not often easy. It does not fit the mold of public opinion, and it does not conform to shifting standards. It answers only to the facts and to the law. With this in mind, we must now ask ourselves, where do we go from here? Will we continue to prosecute the charges brought in this case as it now proceeds through the justice system and moves to trial? That is our responsibility. And this will be done while the FBI continues its investigation into potential violations of federal law. I know that not everyone will be satisfied with the charges we've reported today. My team set out to investigate the circumstances surrounding Ms. Taylor's death. We did it with a singular goal in mind: pursuing the truth. Kentuckians deserve no less. The city of Louisville deserves no less. Every person has an idea of what they think justice is. My role as special prosecutor in this case is to set aside everything in pursuit of the truth. My job is to present the facts to the grand jury, and the grand jury then applies those facts to the law. If we simply act on emotion or outrage, there is no justice. Mob justice is not justice. Justice sought by violence is not justice.
Man, shut your step.
It just becomes revenge. And in our system, criminal justice isn't the quest for revenge. It's the quest for truth, evidence, and facts, and the use of that truth as we fairly apply our laws. Our reaction to the truth today says what kind of society we want to be. Do we really want the truth, or do we want a truth that fits our narrative? Do we want the facts?
I want you to shut the hell up. Okay, folks. Hate to start today's episode with that foolishness, but it is what it is. This is where we are. If I heard him correctly, and I was in and out, but it sounded like they're charging this officer with putting the lives of the neighbors in danger. Not for killing Breonna Taylor. Did I hear that right? Because I'm listening to it at the same time as you, and I was trying to take care of the kids on the trampoline. But did I hear that right? That they are charging this officer for recklessly or wantonly endangering the lives of the people next door, not for killing Breonna Taylor. That's a slap in the face. And because it hinges on, first of all, let me go back to the beginning of what he was saying. This man, and David, when you could chop this up, at the beginning, what this man said was he, as a prosecutor, cannot act to influence the decision or the prosecution or the trial. But then he actively puts out there information that is clearly meant to influence the outcome of the trial. So it's another example of them telling us that the sky is green and the grass is blue. He's telling us that what he's getting ready to do in this press conference was not going to be anything that was out of order, would not influence. It was just the facts. But everything that he presented was the word of the cops, which is clearly biased. They have an incentive to lie to protect their police officers. See, here's the thing. To these people, including that black man, truth and justice is wrapped up in their perspective. And they tell us that this is truth and justice, and we just have to accept it because it's moral and right before the law. But when in actuality, it is the opinion and it is the position of police officers who are trying to protect one of their own. And yet he expects us to accept it as though it's simply him adjudicating fair justice. They're giving us poison and telling us it's candy. I'm at a loss. Well, here's the deal. I'm not at a loss for words because Breonna didn't get justice. No, sweetie, don't do that. Go over here. It wasn't enough for her to not get justice. It was, he had to go above and beyond to exonerate in this press conference the police officer of doing anything wrong in the killing of Breonna Taylor. You see the difference? I did not expect for them to give her justice. But I did not expect for them to throw salt on the wound by saying that we're not going to charge them for anything, not even reckless endangerment of Breonna Taylor's life, not even involuntary manslaughter or reckless, whatever the charge is. It was the neighbors. He charged this man for the neighbors. So he went above and beyond to insult us. That's the thing. It's like, it's one thing for you to not give us justice, but to go above and beyond to insult us. That's the thing I got a problem with. And to tell us that what you're doing is just a statement of fact, but the statements of quote unquote fact that you're giving us are nothing more than the talking points from police officers that you expect us to accept as the truth. Do you see the difference here? You see the distinction I'm making? That man, was it Daniel Cameron? David Cameron? No, David Cameron's from the UK. Daniel Cameron. That man is one of the quintessential examples of a collaborator of color. Black people who, a person of color, period, who is not only not a threat to this white male Christian power structure, but they're collaborators with that white male Christian power structure. Daniel Cameron is like, his mentor is Mitch McConnell, the same Mitch McConnell who denied President Obama his pick in Merrick Garland, but is now expediting the pick for Donald Trump. But I'm tired of a system telling us that their crimes against us is justice. That's what they're doing. We have a system that tells us. Now, how did I put it on the podcast this morning? Be sure to go to iTunes and download today's podcast. It really, I mean, I always speak from my soul, but this one was from a different place. How did I put it? I said that powerful people use their power to convince as many people as possible that everything that they do is right and just. And then they use their power to convince everybody that anyone who opposes them is evil. The best example I can give you of this is Kyle Rittenhouse. Kyle Rittenhouse is the 17-year-old man who traveled across state lines to Kenosha, Wisconsin, and killed 2 Black Lives Matter protesters. He is on the side of the white male Christian power structure in this country. And I'll play the clip of Bill O'Reilly again so everyone can understand why I, with just clarity and certainty, say the white male Christian power structure. Kyle Rittenhouse was there on the side of the white male Christian power structure. Everyone else that was protesting was there protesting the white male Christian power structure in some form or fashion. Kyle Rittenhouse kills 2 people. They raise him $1 million for his defense. Fox News last night plays a video of him, and essentially wraps him in the image of a hero. So this is what I mean when I say the powerful use their power to convince everyone that everything that they do is just, moral, and right. This is what I mean. They've convinced America that Kyle Rittenhouse is a hero. And they spent so much time convincing America that someone like Tamir Rice or Trayvon Martin were villains. You see what I'm saying? They're telling us that the sky is green and the grass is blue, that up is down and down is up. And they do that because they can't have anyone believing that justice is not on their side. The reason Daniel Cameron just wrapped all that BS that he just gave us, he wrapped it in the name of justice, is because they have to make the moral assertion that justice is on their side, when in reality, they are the biggest affront to justice. The idea of justice, the concept, the spirit of justice. justice beyond what America dictates as just. See, America says it was just for us to drop bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. America still says that that's just, when it clearly wasn't. America says that the Iraq War was just. They convinced half of America that it was just when it wasn't. America convinces the world that the obscene wealth that they have, that comes at the expense of everyone else, leaving everyone else in extreme poverty. They convince the world that that's just when it clearly is not. And so this is what I mean when I say the powerful use their power, their money, and their hold on, don't come out of there yet. I'll let you out. That power and that money, economic power and political power, they use that power to convince everyone that they are just and everything that they do is just. And then on the flip side, they use that power to convince everyone that people like you and people like me, that we're not just, that we're the evil, that we're the villains. And it's the opposite. It's that side of the equation that is really vexing me right now. The side of the equation where they're expending their energy convincing people that we are the villains. And so I feel like we're going into this period where the villains, the antagonists of the story, they're going to be written in as though they're the heroes, when anyone who really has justice, the winds of justice at their back, those of us who are really serving on behalf of the people, we know clearly who the villains really are.